guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here then welcome to my channel, and I hope you enjoy this. So for those who don't know and have never seen my videos before, I have selective mutism. So it's a condition where it's really hard to talk in certain situations. So if I refer to it as situational mutism, it's exactly the same thing. It's just that when you have selective mutism, you prefer it to be called situational mutism because you aren't selecting when to speak, and that is one of the most important things to know, is that it's not a choice. It just happens. You don't know when, where, or how to stop it from happening. It just does, and it's out of your control. So we call it situational mutism because it's in certain situations where you can't talk and you freeze up. So I thought in today's video I would do a bit of a guidance video for teachers or even workers, I suppose, but mainly for teachers, because when I went to school it was a hard time. Not many teachers really took on board to look into selective mutism because why would they? I was the only one out of however many kids. Like, they're just not going to. And the amount of times that I used to get so upset at school because they would put me on the spot when I shouldn't have been put on the spot, and it was frustrating because the amount of times the same teachers would just ask me questions in front of the class knowing I'm not going to talk to you. Like, you've put me on the spot. That's one of the worst things. So that's actually number one, is do not put a child with selective mutism on the spot. And that goes for adults as well, but if I refer back to children it's because it's mainly like for teachers, but this video is for anyone. If you ask a question to anyone in front of a class, do not go to that child with selective mutism and say, what is the answer to this? That is not helping. That's just going to make them worse. Knowing that you're going to be putting them on the spot all the time, it's one of the worst feelings ever, going into a class just waiting for that teacher to call your name out in front of the class, knowing you're not going to answer, not going to be able to, but you don't know when it's coming. You're expecting it, but you don't know when, and you just wish that they wouldn't, so then you could actually enjoy your life. It is one of the worst things. So if you really want to get an answer out of a child with selective mutism, never ask them in front of a whole class. Ask them at the end of the class, before the class starts when no one else is about, or even go over to them, but not when the class is watching. Just make that attempt to know that teachers are there to support you and not intimidate you in front of a class. Like, that's the wrong thing to do, and that's how it feels. It's intimidating because everyone else around you can talk in front of the class. Even if they don't know the answer, they'll say, I don't know the answer. We sit there. Like, I'm not saying this is the case for every selective mute child or adult, but for me this is what I found. So these tips on what not to do basically is what I've gone through myself, but I know it's very similar for everyone. But there might be some people who have it at different levels, and maybe some can talk in front of a class, and that's one of their situations where they can talk, but not for many. If you're going to ask a child, do not ask in front of the class. They're just going to freeze up. And so what happens to me all the time, you just freeze there and sit there and then get really embarrassed because you know you're not going to talk when the teacher needs you to. The next one is that if a child with selective mutism does put their hand up, go to them. They've made that attempt to connect with you. It may not happen, it's very rare, but if you're a teacher that this person really gets on with, that this child really connects with, and they've put their hand up in a class, ask them. Like, let them answer the question or ask the question because they have made that connection. That is a massive thing for a selective mute to do, is to put their hand up in front of a class. Like, it's very rare. So that could be a stepping stone to them becoming more confident and becoming out of their shell. Like, that's amazing if they do that. I never did. I might have if I was very close and it was with a class like I really knew and the children like I got on with and knew, but it was very rare. I would never have done it out of choice unless I really had to. But yeah, it shows progress if they're putting their hand up in class, so encourage it. Like, don't ignore it. That's probably one of the worst things as well, is if they've made that attempt, go to them. I know that you've probably got a class of 30 other kids who want to answer, but They will answer any other questions. If this child wants to answer this question with Selective Mutism, go to them. That's going to encourage them to do it more often, and to know that that's okay to do and that no one's judging. Number 3, do not overreact to a child in front of them who has Selective Mutism. Like, that is one of the biggest things. If you're going to make a big performance, don't do it about them or right in front of them. They're going to get embarrassed. It is the worst feeling ever to have. Even if it's something good you've done, if you think this child has done an amazing piece of work, tell them. Don't announce it to the whole world, because yeah, they're not going to like that. So just keep it simple. They all know the praise that they're getting. We all understand it, but we don't want you to be spreading it around everywhere, because that's putting more attention onto you. And as a section mute, you don't want that attention. Like, you just know, if a teacher has told you well done, that means a lot to you. If they're shouting about it and making this big dramatic performance about your work that you've achieved, they're going to be less likely to do it, because they know that that's the reaction they get from you and don't want it. So they all know, just do it subtly. Even just tell their parents and carers or whoever looks after them as well about this amazing piece of work. Just don't go spreading it in front of the class and saying it out loud, because it's going to revert them back and they're going to freeze up because they don't know how to act. You've just suddenly out of the blue made this big dramatic performance about them, drawing more attention to them. It's not good. So if you have a child in your class who has Selective Mutism, check on them, because very often I'd be sat there because I can't do the work, or I struggled with certain subjects or like questions, and if I was stuck on a question, I couldn't put my hand up and say, I need some help, I'm stuck. I sat there because I wasn't able to tell them that I needed help. So just walk around the room and keep an eye out. So if they are just sat there and not doing their work, it's because they need your help and they don't understand it. Even if they can't tell you, just go over what they need to do and they'll pick it up. So just explain the question to them, even if it's just rereading it, because they can't tell you that they need help and that they're struggling with their work. I know that you've got lots of other children in your classrooms as well, but they can tell you when they need help. The majority of them will. But if it's just that one person in the class, you going over to them without them asking is going to mean so much more than them just being sat there not doing anything and not learning. So you're going to have a bigger level of achievement when that child grasps what they need to do. Another way that they'll ask you for help is through eye contact. Not all children will show eye contact, but if you have made that eye contact with a child and they're looking at you for help, go to them, because they need to talk to you but can't put their hand up to tell you what. And they're not going to shout out that they need help. Like, it's not going to happen. That draws attention to them, which is what we don't want. So if you've got situational mutism, being in a classroom is not ideal for putting your hand up and saying you need help. Another thing you can do, it's not likely to happen, but it might for some children. I know for me, I was a bit 50-50 about it, but I understood the point. So in our like homework diaries, we had like a red and a green on like pages. I don't have one to show you, but the red means you're stuck and you need help. The green means you're fine. So if you had your diary open on the green page, it was like double green, page of green, that means you're doing well. If you turned it over, it meant you needed help. And that was a good way of, because I couldn't tell them I needed help, I could just put the page over. But also in my head I was thinking, everyone knows I need help. They don't. They're not looking to see what colour page you're on. The teacher will straight away hear or see you turning that page and will come over and help. And that's what needs to happen, is that the teachers are coming to help, because otherwise you're sat there and then it's thoughts are whirring around your head like, I can't do this, no one's coming to help, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm going to get into trouble because I'm not doing my work. And there's a lot of thoughts that go on that people don't realise. So yeah, if that could be a thing that helps, even if it's just a red and a green piece of paper like stacked on top or stuck together, and back one side's a red, one side's green, and then they can flip it over. That's all good. Like, but don't just give it to that one child, give it to every child. because otherwise you've singled them out, and you don't want to single anyone out. If you can see that a child is worried about something, and this could be something that you know is going to trigger them, so situational mutism, same as selective mutism, you have these triggers that you don't always know about, but I know the biggest thing for me was like going on school trips, or if there was some big event coming up, like sports day, just any event coming up, that would be a trigger. Like, I don't cope in those situations. I was fortunate enough to have my mum work at the primary school that I went to. We didn't have anything to do with each other at school. The teachers made sure we were kept apart. But just knowing that I had her there, like, she knew what I would be going through, and she knew what she could tell the teachers to do and to help to support. And then at high school, obviously she wasn't there, but I was really close to this one teacher. So if anything, I had any worries about anything, Mr. Butler was the one that I gave my pieces of paper to about anything I'd written down that I was worried about, and he would always be there to help me get through them and to sort them out. That was one of the biggest connections, like handing over a piece of paper with things that you've written down that you're worried or anxious about and don't know how to cope with. It helped because I wouldn't have got through high school otherwise. And that's the biggest thing is with a selective mute, is to make that connection. So another point is find a teacher or a teaching assistant or someone in that school that that child is close with, even if it's one of their peers. Let them go to them when they're anxious and report back to the main teacher or whoever, and then that child knows that they've got someone that they support. But make sure it's that someone that child really connects well with, because otherwise it ain't gonna happen, I don't think. So yeah, it's just about making that connection and making sure that child is okay, and that if they're worried about something, they know that they can come to you. They can write it down and give you that piece of paper. And that could be another thing, if they're stuck, that they can give you a piece of paper. But I wouldn't have got up in front of a class to give you a piece of paper to come and sit back down and you follow me over. So probably won't happen for that, but if they're worried or anxious about something, that's a great one. One of them is to keep, as a teacher, keep regular contact with their parent or carer or whoever looks after them at home, because that's another connection that they can make, is that that parent can then go to the teacher and say, look, my child is worried about something and that they need support. I don't know how to deal with this. Can we work together to deal with it? And that's going to mean a lot to the child, knowing that you're both working together and you're both on the same page and on the same side. So that's another thing, just keep regular contact and keep them up to date with what they're doing well, because that's what parents need to hear. They're going through it as much as a selective mute child. You know, they're seeing all the bad sides, and they need to be reminded of all the goodness that their child is producing and is having. The last thing is, if you are having a meeting about that child, let the child be involved, because there's nothing worse than not knowing what's going on. A lot of things have gone on behind my back that I wasn't aware of, and some things that the school arranged that my mum didn't know of. And it wasn't until I left and that we got a pile of work and we got a pile of papers. Some of it I didn't even know had happened. So just keep that child informed on everything that's going on, so then they're aware, and that's going to reduce their anxiety, knowing exactly what's going on. So have a routine for them. Let them come to you if they need you. If you have a meeting and you want the child to tell you something as a teacher, it might be easier to have their parent, carer, whoever in the room. The teacher leaves the room, let the child say anything they need to their parent. Teacher comes back in, and then the parent relays what the child has said. Child could leave the room when the parent's relaying, that's fine. But I've read about it on one of the Selective Mutism group chats I'm on, that this is quite a common thing to happen. It didn't for me, because my meetings with someone that I was close with and that I had a connection with, and my mum was in there, I was able to talk, but not to begin with. And it grew, and sometimes it's easier to not have your parent or carer in the room and just to talk to the teacher, but sometimes it is easy to have the parent in there, because they might have things that they need to say as well. But let the child hear, because otherwise you're just leaving them out. Yeah, they could even write down the answers to these questions and give to you. Like, give them lots of options and let them choose what they want to do, because it's not fair on them if they're being forced to speak when they really can't and don't want to because they're not able to. So that's all of my tips about guidance on selective mutism, or situational mutism as we prefer to call it, for teachers, because when I was at schools I never fitted in well because nobody understood. And that's why I love this channel, is to spread awareness of situational mutism, selective mutism, both the same. But yeah, so I just wanted to put a disclaimer out that obviously this is about me and my life, what I've gone through. Everybody is different. Selective mutism, I have used that word. Situational mutism is what we prefer to call it. But because the official medical term, I suppose, is selective mutism, that's why I've called it. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings by not calling it situational mutism, because I prefer that. But the official term is selective mutism, so that's why I've used that. So I'll do loads more videos on selective mutism for you all, because it's a topic that obviously I'm very close to, because I go through it. And I want to help spread awareness, because there just isn't the awareness out there. So if you have any suggestions or ideas or topics you want me to cover on selective mutism, comment down below or DM me on Instagram or anything. I'll put my Instagram name here, I'll put it down in the description below. But just feel free to reach out to me and ask me any questions, and if I can answer them for you, I will, or I'll put them on a video for you. I'll let you know the answer whichever way I reply. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you find it useful. Subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified every time I upload new videos, and you never know when another selective mutism comes up onto the page. So like this video, comment any ideas like I've said below, and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!